Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of HR Tech Chat. I am very pleased to have with us today Adriana DiNenno, who's going to talk to us about her dual role at Infor. One is in product management, and the other is product management for Infor's People Solutions. And the other role of hers, which is very interesting, is she's co-chair of the Infor People Wellbeing Business Resource Group. And well-being has never been more important. We're hearing a lot about it in the space, and Adriana and I are going to discuss the rise of it and how it kind of interestingly fits into what we've been talking about quite a bit this year at 3Sixty Insights, which is abstract and concrete HCM. So welcome, Adriana. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Brent. Thanks for having me here this morning.
Yeah. Oh, I've been really excited for this particular episode. You have a very interesting role at Infor, and maybe we could focus on the business resource group for a little bit here. Am I correct in recalling that you founded, or you sort of championed the founding of this group at Infor?
Yes, I did. So actually named it too. So Infor People Solutions had previously been named Human Capital Management, HCM, and that was a buzz term, that years ago was more acceptable and normal than now, which is we are People Solutions. We focus on the people and within HR. And so when this group was first starting, I went to the head of HR with the idea to have something that focuses on mental health because of how important mental health is in our society. Not sure if everyone knows, but right now 1 in 2 people has a mental illness, and it's it's a real thing. And so I went to the head of HR and we got the group started. And I quickly realized it's way more than just the mental. It's the physical, the financial, the environmental, the social, and there's all these dimensions of employee well-being. So I couldn't come up with a better name than Infor People Wellbeing. And then it happened to fit perfectly with People Solutions, right? Because they're all kind of swarming in the same area. So
Yeah. Uh, I think it's a great name for the resource group, excuse me. And it's very interesting. We hear about financial wellness. We've been seeing this crop up in discussions around payroll and earned wage access solutions and all this kind of stuff. I just want to go back though, because I think it'd be great to park on this for a little bit. Is mental illness, right? Or mental challenges. Even if you're not mentally ill, you're still facing, pretty tough, steep challenges mentally today. And that really surprised me, though. 1 in every 2 people.
yes, and when you say that, it could be temporary or chronic or permanent, right?
Yeah.
So I know at certain points in my life, when my mom passed, I was having more mental health challenges than other points in my life. So it can be temporary, it can be more heavy at certain points than others. We're all people and we're all experiencing life as we're trying to work and, have our personal things. So
You know what? You brought that up, and I'm sorry for your loss.
thank
You
you.
mentioned, you're welcome. Bereavement, though. Let's talk about bereavement, because if you want to talk about concrete and abstract HCM and how it fits in with what you're doing with people well-being, excuse me. I mean, scheduling software, um, account. Being able to adapt very quickly, flexibly to, let's say I'm jumping around a bit. I'm having trouble getting this out, but let's look at an example, right? Let's think about like retail, the retail, like a floor associate. at a, let's say like a mid-tier, we won't say Walmart, let's say Target, right? It's Walmart's the go-to example. We'll go with Target this time. So
Okay, well, I spend more time at Target
Target, as I've
Yeah.
heard it called.
I never,
Let's
once I
see.
get in, I never get out. So
Yeah, I know, me too. They have some good candy selections there, and they at one time they had Red Hots, which are my favorite. Those hard cinnamon candies. I'm sure they're really bad for you, made with Red Lake #5 or whatever it is. But they taste great though. I digress. Let's say you have a Target floor associate who suddenly has a death of a close family member, right? And I mean, you have, as an organization, you have, that doesn't change your scheduling needs, right? And we're not qualifying that as good or bad. The show must go on, right? And so you need a scheduling software that can account for that very quickly, maybe with quick shift swapping that can help facilitate somebody's bereavement time that they need to take right away, this sort of thing. And that's a great example, I think, of how concrete and abstract HCM really, the confluence of the two. Because when you think about scheduling software, for instance, timekeeping and all this, think of it, at first blush, it just seems like concrete HCM. Just to clue in viewers who we've been talking about abstract and concrete, not realizing that there might be some people viewing this that haven't heard this concept before. Concrete is all this stuff in HCM that's easily quantifiable, measurable. It's a lot of that administrative work, a lot of that stuff that just takes a lot of time to get right, needs to be tamped down and tight in your HR department. Then abstract HCM is all about employee sentiment, employee engagement. How are your employees feeling about the job? How are they feeling on the job? And ultimately, this, the aggregate of this employee sentiment, eventually sort of informing or being the basis of your employer culture and your employer brand. So that's abstract HCM. Well, this is a great example. Employee well-being, bereavement, scheduling software that in a very concrete way is able to adapt very quickly, but it has an enormous impact on employee sentiment for that person in particular.
yeah, and I can add some flavor there if you want, using your examples. So, it's great. And we've been doing it for years that, you have scheduling software and you can give people the concrete time off, and maybe do a shift swap. And we have all of our systems are, they're very much integrated and they work together. So like we have workforce management where you can do that. And that's the one side of it, is giving you the time off, whether it's a mental health day, a bereavement day, or whatever. But then the other side of that I think is just coming to more fruition, is the intangible part of that, which is the employee sentiment. And that's the part that I think's been missing. I mean, even back when my mother died, I got my standard bereavement and life went on right afterward. It was as if it never happened. And I think what's happening now is through these types of groups, as well as, so that's something that may just be a process versus the process being supported in the software. Having the ability for the employee to know that they have a support system, people around them that care. And so like Infor, for example, we have this group. We just had someone approach me and our co-chair that they want to do like a peer-to-peer with cancer. So if you're a cancer survivor, you can like give advice to someone going through treatments. Or, if you're a person that experienced someone passing from cancer or caring for someone with cancer, that you have someone you can talk to. But so we have the group and the emotional parts that come with it, but we also have tools in our software to check in with your employee. We have manager to employee check-ins. And if managers are using those tools appropriately and saying, hey, how you doing? like on a scale, I think our check-in says like 1 to 10, how are you doing? And, we have just different tooling within the software to really engage with that employee. So,
Now so you brought up a really good point, the sort of having the support system in place, a human support system in place at work, and that's an organizational culture thing, and it's very important. Um, and you also speak of, the software being able to facilitate a manager check-in, and this is, maybe you could help me understand, because we hear a lot about this, and I always think to myself, I'm just being devil's advocate for the sake of the discussion. I'm not saying I
sure,
necessarily believe
sure.
this, but someone might say, well, okay, why don't just have the manager pick up the phone and call the employee, or stop by their desk, or send them a text message, if they're millennials or Generation Z, because they hate phone calls.
Sure.
Being Generation Z, X myself, not Z, I wish. X, I'm kind of equally comfortable with text, and I actually like text more than phone calls too, if we're being honest. But what's this stuff? What is it about the technology itself that delivers more value there? Are we talking about an instrument that's like a Likert scale that's built into the system, so they can kind of punch it in, and like the manager can send the link? I mean, I imagine like ideally it would be maybe a Zoom call and then embedded into, or whatever, we're using MS Teams, viewers, we're using MS Teams today. But something that embeds into whatever video conferencing software you use, so that there can be a conversation and also a link that's automatically shared at the same time. It's like, can you just
Sure,
explain a
I
little
can
bit
try
deeper? Yeah.
to I can try to give some insight in there. I mean, I guess, yeah, there's nothing that beats a manager one-on-one. And we're not saying that, manager one-on-ones aren't important, maybe once a week or, bi-weekly, whatever, with you and your manager. But there's something also to be said about the written word. And maybe that's just the journalism major in me. But
Mm.
I know we have a system called the rave system, where you send a rave to somebody and it's kind words about the person. And so I know I have a coworker who just went above and beyond to help me with something. So I logged a rave for him today and I said, thank you so much for all you do for me. And if I don't say it enough, thank you. Could I have just called him on the phone and said it? Yeah, I do that. But it also went to his manager and his other managers. And there's something for him to have that, to be able to print it out, hang it up if he wants to. There's something about that.
Mm.
And there's also something to be said about, yeah, you and your manager sit down once a week and talk for a half hour. But if you just need a quick check-in one of the days to say, working on this, had a blocker, then it doesn't have to wait an entire week. And let's just face it, things happen. I know people get sick and you may have to cancel the one-on-one because you're working, you're still working, but your voice is gone or something, like, or you're just not up for a call because you may not be feeling good that day. So I think technology does come into play with it, but I think it also supplements having the good HR process. So
Yeah, yeah, he makes some great points. The the being it's not technically true, but that that rave being in the public domain of the greater domain of observable by your peers, right? That's that's that feels good. I've been at uh, employers in the past where there's something similar, a little bit more antiquated, but where someone can post basically a compliment or extolling somebody's performance on some project, and everyone can see it, and it does have a nice cascading effect, and it does have beyond the point to point effect. So obviously it's the person who's the recipient of the compliment, or the rave, or whatever you want to call it, right? However you brand a compliment, right? Beyond the person who receives that compliment, right? It does lift all boats, right? It has a positive residual or I think a better word is cascading effect on the rest of the organizational population. And so that's a it's like feeding the organizational culture good nutrients, right? So, or you could even, or a nice sweet, even like junk food tastes good too. Not that compliment is junk food, but the idea. I'm trying to take this metaphor too far of nutrients in
Picking out
organization.
that in now, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. It becomes contagious and people like it. It also gives the person who's giving it just as much gratification. I know I just signed up for Christmas to buy a child at at the church like a present, and it gives me a lot of joy. It's like the same feeling. Like I feel so happy with the fact that I could just do that tiny thing. So it's kind of the same type of feelings that like happen in your brain. So yeah, I think that that's the part of the abstract, along with like, feeling recognized, because it's important that we feel recognized and that we belong. And I think that all part is what's always been missed in the HR systems. And that's now our focus is shifting to say, okay, how do we retain this talent? How do we recruit new people? And people want to come to an organization where they're going to feel like they belong, where they're going to not want to have to leave the job. I know one of our, the co-chair for my group, there's two of us. She started right, she's pretty new to Infor, but she started right after she became a chair right after she joined. And one of the reasons she decided to join Infor was because we have these types of groups. We have this one, but we also have Pride at Infor, we have Black at Infor, Women at Infor, and they all very much work together in a lot of ways. And that was a deciding criteria for a candidate in looking for a new position. Whereas 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case, right? These weren't even a concept. So
That's very interesting. So what I'm hearing is, and stop me if I'm running afield a little bit here, but what I'm hearing is that you folks are with some intentionality, some premeditation, right? You're hiring for cultural fit.
we hire for talent and cultural fit, correct?
Yeah.
I think it's the whole big picture. And in our software, we try to give you the tools to do that too, like hire equity, making sure that your hiring workflows promote an equitable process, that you're looking at all aspects of the employee. Like we have a talent science tool where I actually just took the behavioral assessment, and I
Okay.
have to say it was dead on. Like it gives you a behavioral assessment, and we give them to new hires, and we're going to have a lot of employees be taking them as part of our BRG, and it gives you like information about yourself, and it can kind of like empower you to know where your strengths are, where you maybe, where, not that it's not a strength, but where you may, be a little, oh, Adriana, in this area, she requires more recognition, so that you're kind of aware of, it's kind of like the personality test in a way.
Okay, so
The
this,
Myers-Briggs one but way better.
yeah. Oh yeah,
But
no, the psychometrics and psychometric instruments available today are they blow Myers-Briggs out of the water.
yeah, yeah,
This is not your father's Myers-Briggs. Um,
yeah.
uh, um, It's interesting. This is so fascinating. Wasn't expecting our conversation to sort of veer into behavioral testing, or personality testing, but soft skill testing, I think, is what you would call it. But that's really smart. I mean, if you want to become an agile, if you want to um, cultivate an agile workforce, right?
Hmm.
Where internal mobility and I guess external mobility, recruiting, hiring people, right? If you want to
An
be
equitable hiring process. Yeah.
in an equitable hiring process, but if you want to be as well-oiled of a machine as possible, and you really are hiring, whether it's internally or externally, as accurately as possible for the
Hmm.
best potential um, success, then you really need to be incorporating these soft skill assessments into into the process. So that's and some viewers here may have noticed that we've had previous episodes where we talk about that at the intersection of artificial intelligence as well, because there's a lot going on in artificial intelligence right now in terms of helping. There are tools to help companies develop an ontological, figure out what's the ontology of their soft skills internally and all this kind of stuff, right? And in my opinion, those efforts they're well-meaning, and we need to you know sick the AI on that stuff, so to speak, right? At the same time, if it's not informed by solid, in-depth modern psychometrics, then we might be going in the wrong direction or moving too fast.
Yeah, and I think that's why we were considering for all the business resource groups having everyone take these behavioral assessments as well. And I know everyone does currently take them on hire, and we do incorporate that into People Solutions. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that you know that can be done. So
I've just I've been in the space long enough that sometimes I forget things, but all of a sudden I'm remembering there is an organ there's a vendor that Infor acquired a while back that is, I believe, is the origins of this. Is it People Answers?
well, yes, People
Yeah, okay,
Answer.
People Answers. Yes,
Yes,
okay,
that was
okay,
the origin of this. And
yeah,
then Infor acquired Lawson, which is the origin of a lot of the HR.
that's
So,
right. That's right. What are the plans at Infor around artificial intelligence, where it intersects with this specifically?
sure, yeah. So we have a artificial intelligent product called Coleman, and we have that. What's really neat about all of our solutions is that you don't just have HR here and an ERP over there and
Mm.
like all these systems just not talking to each other. They all speak to each other through Infor operating system, Infor OS. And so
Mm.
you can be using your distribution ERP, your manufacturing ERP, your healthcare suite. Like we have a Cloverleaf is a major player in that market, what like with the Epics. And you're using that tooling and it integrates and it's very interoperable to all the other solutions. So People Solution is your answer to HR as, use while using your ERP or your healthcare system. And we have a data lake that stores all the data. And then we have the Coleman that kind of does the artificial intelligence. And within People Solutions, we've been and we continue to add more and more AI use cases so that, to support that. So for example, one of the products that I manage that is in my portfolio, which with COVID-19 has just been like it's occupational health and employee safety.
Okay.
And speaking of well-being, it's, are your employees vaccinated? Did they get the flu shots? Was there a safety incident? And we provide that in our people solutions.
Mm,
And one of the things that I'm doing is adding some more AI use cases for these modules to say, oh, you had a COVID-19 exposure. Okay, you need to be assigned automatically a health component of COVID-19 test. So we kind of are always looking at the latest and greatest AI use cases, but we do have our own for that. And it does talk to all the systems. So
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, smart. You know what? You touched on something that we've talked about recently at 360 Insights, and this idea we talked about it within the confines of HCM itself, right? Knocking down silos, which is not a new concept in HCM, but I really do, believe, is my opinion, that the conventional silos, the traditional taxonomy of HCM, that it's useful still in terms of discussing the various components of HCM. It helps in conversation, but in practice and application, it's a big mistake to think about HCM as being each of these parts. They're all intertwined. And we're seeing this more and more. For instance, learning and performance management. They're almost inextricable at this point. I would never advise an organization to just do one or the other. Definitely want to have them intertwined, and obviously artificial intelligence to help inform that.
yeah, and
But
I agree. The silos are not good for the solutions. When you have people solutions, it's not like there's a module with diversity, equity, inclusion. It's
mm,
intertwined throughout the whole experience. Like
mm,
all of the things that you're doing as you're processing pay, as you're hiring talent, it's considering these concepts throughout the experience. It's
mm,
not like a one report and you're done, right?
mm,
Which I think in the past it was like, oh, we have a few reports. We're diverse, right? But that's not, we have a report that shows you how many, of each race or of each whatever, and that's not what it is. It's really threading those components throughout the whole experience, and then having those systems speak to each other and not work in silos. And that's
mm.
why our product group, we all very much work together on, even though I have a product manager that maybe just focuses on payroll or benefits
Mm.
or talent acquisition, we all very much communicate together to eliminate those silos as we come up with the big pictures. So
Yeah, and I know that Infor talks about industry solutions, which is really smart. And and just to take that knocking down silos and concept, frankly, you can apply that same idea to the entire enterprise, right? We talk about the enterprise as having, there's a financial applications component, there's a CRM, and
inventory,
yeah,
there's
and
just so many different.
supply chain management, all these things, right? And sometimes, there are some needs where you really just need an SCM, that's just essentially what you need. But in a lot of cases, and so that the various domains of the enterprise will persist in terms of being individual distinct parts of the whole. But at the same time, if you're talking about solving for industries, then it frees you from a conceptual standpoint as an organization to look at any given potential customers' uh, challenges, right? And not have to think, you're almost not forced to think about solving for their challenges in terms of, okay, well, I have scheduling and attendance, I have performance management, and I have this enterprise asset management solution, and okay, you need these three things, right? It's more about looking at it holistic. I hate that word because we use it all the time, but it does apply. Looking at it holistically, and then building like the components of it so that every single iteration of solution across your entire customer base might be some different uh, combination of the various individual solutions that the vendor has.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Oh, it makes sense. And to your point at the beginning, it's a combination of the concrete and the abstract.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, it is. That's the other thing is concrete and abstract doesn't apply just to HCM. There are other there are other aspects to, if you think about everything is concrete and abstract, everything that we do concretely and well, everything that happens in whatever domain of the enterprise you're in, there's a concrete component and there's an expression of it that's also abstract in that it affects or has an influence on employee sentiment. In HCM, we like to think that HCM technology is where that concrete has the biggest sort of abstract impact, but it's not the only place, right? And this is an idea that we've been floating around, and where I don't think HCM is just about HR anymore.
yeah, I don't think so either. No. Yeah. And can you elaborate more on why you think that? So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. So, we look at deals sometimes, and who are the stakeholders involved in deals. Often, more and more, it's the chief operations officer, right? Because
oh,
maybe,
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's not just, often they didn't really understand what the needs were. Um, to our point about the abstract, and the abstract is hard to quantify.
Mm,
And so I think more and more it is, and I think the HR generalist role is becoming a different type of role in
mhm.
this realm. I just was at HR Tech and they talked about that.
Well, it has to become. I totally agree. And it's feels validating to hear that others are essentially saying similar things. But it
Yes.
needs to evolve, because if HR generalist role remains focused or fixated on sort of streamlining the administrative tedium, then what happens once that effort is successful? Where does that leave HR?
Yeah,
HR
yeah, they were
needs.
talking about the same thing at the conference, which is where I came into contact with you afterward. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
from Playas, yeah.
Everything is so serendipitous. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was
Um,
like the most fun for me to actually go somewhere. That was the first time I'd went anywhere in like years because of the pandemic. So
yeah, yeah. I was in Florida in late September. Also, first trip. One of the vendors obviously had their user conference, but I, it's you think about, and we're running out of time here, but a lot of companies, they have sort of frontline workers, right? I mean, if you think about it, HR, where is HR in that person's mind? Nowhere really. I mean, it's about that person's relationship with their manager, and that's where the employee experience happens, right? And so it's the manager who has an impact on the employee experience. And so you want technologies that are going to make the manager and the employee, they're going to make the concrete aspects of their jobs as streamlined and intuitive as possible, so that they can spend more time, um, uh, so the manager can spend more time thinking about the employee sentiment. And also you need an organizational culture that fosters that values that, right, in
not
their
only that,
managers, in
but
their
thinks
leadership.
about the manager sentiment right now, one of the most common things that's happening with management is manager burnout. So employee burnout, but manager burnout. And I think that's the first time we're actually acknowledging and talking about that. But there's a lot of pressure on them. They're an employee too, just like the employee. So
You're absolutely right. They're people too. Managers are people
they're
too.
people, yeah. So
It,
it's just,
I'm laughing. I'm chuckling because it's funny. I love that you brought it up because yeah, we talk about the manager-employee relationship, and we're so focused on the employee's feelings, and what about the manager's feelings?
well, the
And
manager is
then
an
there's two.
employee. It's almost like when you talk about an actor and they seem like this, this superstar, that they're not a person. And it's like, no, no, that's a person too. They have feelings and a manager, just like the employee, they're a person and they have feelings and they're part of, they're a little different than the employee, but at the same time, they're experiencing a lot of the same things we've talked about. And we have management that's part of our BRGs, like our business resource groups. And I love the perspective they bring. I love when they attend, and they do attend. And one of our things that we want to do is more manager training, because I think it's important as well. So that's definitely something that our groups are going to be looking at. So
Yeah, there needs to be a support group for or support for leaders,
oh,
managers, this
definitely.
sort of thing. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just it made me think when we said managers are people too. It's and you brought up the idea of the superstar, like the movie star or maybe the rock
Yeah.
star, and it occurred to me, yeah, let's say you're on Facebook, you're looking at your friends' family pictures as their day to day, and it's interesting because you want to see what your friends are doing, what their families are doing, but when you see like an actor's, this is like this is basically explains the paparazzi, right? Because it's such a novelty, right? To see that Al Pacino or I don't know, dead mouse or whatever, whatever they are, that
Yeah.
they have an
Yeah.
actual family life, like a regular life in the background, and we almost ogle at it because it's such a novelty. It's so a novelty to our brains to think that these people are normal too, and so we're actually kind of almost sort of just marveling at the how mundane it is, which is really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. I love the conversations, and um, I hope you have a good weekend, and I thank you for having me on here.
Oh,
So
it's been fantastic. Keep doing a great job with your resource group. I mean, you're just really doing great stuff, and this has been a fantastic conversation. So, thank you
yeah,
so much.
thank you. I definitely can't do it without the people.
Yeah.
So the people are what is making that group amazing. And it's their participation and it's their embracing the group. I'm speaking of, I'm a leader in a way of the group, right? And I only have so much capacity. I'm a mom of two and I'm a product manager and, I've got my own set of mental health issues and I can only handle so much. And what's been really amazing about the group is people stepping up and saying, okay, I'll write all the communications. I'll do this part. Well, let's divide and conquer because
Yeah.
it takes an army to do this. Like it doesn't take just me wanting the group to succeed. I mean, it takes a lot of people who
Mm.
believe in it and the organicness of the group for it to succeed. So I just want to point that out that it's definitely like a huge team effort. It's like, my 6-year-old, she requires an army to make her succeed. So
I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and they require two armies.
I have a
But
6 and 7-year-old. They're only 13 months apart. So, but yeah. So,
yeah,
I just
you
want to
just
point that
described
out that
you
it's the
just described
organicness.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, we're talking over each other, but I just wanted to say that you just described the success of a group very, very well. It does. It takes everyone. And I think you put that very well. Yeah. Um, you have a wonderful weekend too. And
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.